So there is a test tomorrow, and I told everybody that I'd start them off with just an R2 level skill. Like, what's the easy stuff on the test? Well, 1 over x plus 1 over x plus 1. If you can't add those together, get a common denominator and actually add them together, you're toast. So let's make sure you got this. I'm going to multiply by the other denominator. If you haven't heard that yet, you haven't been here, because we've talked about that so many times. Multiply by the other denominator. So the other denominator in this case is an x and an x. The other denominator over here would be an x plus 1. And by doing that, look, I've got a common denominator. That's the same as in common with that. And so then the denominator is x times x plus 1. Could I multiply it out? Yeah, you can, but then you'd have to factor it again. So why not just leave it factored? Because if you can factor it, you should. Then I got x plus 1 here and another x there, and so many kids put x squared on top. It's not. This is plus. What's x plus x? 2x. And then there's this 1 left over from right there, plus 1. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Cool. Okay. That's one of the basics, is can you make common denominators? When would you ever do that? When the problem is set less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to something. So in this case, would you please now put greater or equal to 0? That totally changes my question. That makes it more like an R3 level, harder level. So you draw a number line, you figure out what makes the top 0, you figure out what makes the bottom 0, and then you test the intervals. This is the meat and potatoes of this test. There's a little factoring we've already done. There's a little bit of solving to what makes the top 0. You got to know the difference between things that kill this function. Like, there's 3 numbers that are key numbers. One of them's a fraction. And one of them makes it equal to 0, and the other one makes it not exist. So, like, of the 3, 2 of them make it not exist, and one of them just makes it equal 0, and that's 2 different things. All right, let's see who I am supposed to call on. In the past, people relied on dice, or sometimes they threw bones to make decisions. It's true, they've cast lots. All right, so this is row 3, last person, Dominic, you're the one. What are the 3 key things that make the top and the bottom 0? -1 is correct. I don't know which one to put it in. I'll put it there. This would be -1/2 up there. If you don't know how he got that, he did 2x plus 1 equals 0, and he solved it. -1/2 is correct, and I'm going to put that like here. And then what's the other number? 0. I really should put that there then. And I'll just erase this one. Okay, so there's my 3 key spots. So Dominic, which of them actually make this function greater or equal to 0? The 0, you're saying 0 works. If I put in a 0 in... that's the one that works, because it makes the top 0. Yes. That is the one that makes it equal to 0. What do these 2 do, Dominic? They make it not exist. Yeah, they kill the function. They're undefined. So leave them empty. How many of you would have been right so far? All right. Sophia, tell me what to do to finish this question then. All right, so give me something I can test. I'll test 1, because it's in that interval right there. So I'm going to put 1 into my function. I'm going to go back here and clean this up a little bit. I'm going to stick a 1 in wherever there's an X. And remember that we don't care exactly what number comes out. What we care is, did it come out positive or negative? So, what did the top come out? Could you say that again? The top comes out positive, and then the bottom comes out? I would think of it as positive, positive, because they both are positive, and you multiply them and they're still positive. So final answer is everything came out positive. What does that mean? It's good. It worked. It gets shaded in right there. All right. Now, I would suspect that this spot here is not going to work because it's right next door to a spot that worked. But I don't know for sure. So I have to test it. So that's going to be 0.25. Do you get that that's between negative a half and 0 is negative 0.25? If you don't have good what's called numbers sense, you might not know what's between negative a half and 0. But hey, you're in precalc. You're supposed to be able to handle that kind of thing. That's a number between negative a half and 0. So negative 0.25. That's the same as negative 1/4, by the way. If I take 2 times a fourth, 1/4 of 2, that's a really small number. It's a really small negative number. So when I add 1, it comes out positive. 1/4 of 2 is 1/2, and it's negative a half plus 1. Negative a half plus 1 comes out positive. Over, this one's negative, and the last part right there comes out positive. Do you get there was only one negative in the whole thing then? After it was smoke settled, it's just negative. Are negatives greater than 0? No, I expected it not to work. Negatives aren't greater than 0, so this area does not work. I personally cross it off. Some teachers just leave it blank. Whatever. I'm okay with either one. Now, I would suspect this part would work because that's usually how these go. So this is negative 0.75, something between negative 0.5. I'm totally fine with you using a decimal for the half if you want. So I got to use negative 0.75 to be in there. So I'm just going to do a little forgery and go change all these to 0.75s. And then I got to decide if it worked or not. That all of a sudden becomes 3/4 and 2 3/4. 2 times 0.75, and I'm doing 3/4 in my head. 2 times 3/4 is 6/4. It's still not, man, no, that is bigger than 1. It's negative something like 1.5. So then that means this top became negative. This is a tricky one. I don't think we'd have any that are that hard to do in your head because, yeah, you'd be begging for a calculator at that point. But so I'm going to have negative on top, and then negative for this part, of course, that's negative. It says it's negative. And then last is I got to do math and figure out, oh, the 1 is bigger, so that's positive. So negative, negative, those cancel. This is positive, which is bigger than 0. It worked just like I thought it was gonna. And I would suspect that the last number is not gonna work. Did anybody already test -2 and make sure it didn't work? You can verify it didn't work? Okay, everybody's agreeing. Good. So then here's my answer, and you could leave it just like that. Unless the test said interval notation, in which case it looked like this. Bracket. I was telling my honors higher algebra kids, they don't have to use interval notation. They can write it, like that. But you have to be able to use interval notation if the test says so. So would you be able to put a little U in between them? Can you make that? I think most of you can. All right. Now here's a hard one that is different. Why? Because you don't have to get a common denominator and add this all together. Why? Because you can clear the fractions. Because it says equals, you could just clear the fractions. This one comes out to just one simple answer, like the answer is -10 or something. Okay, get started. This is the first of 4 challenging questions, is all I have for you today. And then you get to ask me questions and work on the review worksheet and stuff. I'm going to pause for a minute while I give this a try. Let's see if you were on the right track. Remember, we're clearing the fraction. We don't need a common denominator. But the first thing you always do is look to factor, and I think that factors. I hope it does, otherwise my whole problem's messed up. So I'm going to put in the factors right there instead of that, and I'm going to have x and x, and since it ends in a minus, it must be a plus and a minus, and since that's a 12, it must be a 4 and a 3. I'm going to double check myself though by going outside, inside, totals positive x, and that's what I had. And couldn't you have kind of used logic to know that it had to be x plus 4 and x minus 3 because that's what these are? You probably could have figured that out. Okay. Now, I'm going to go through and multiply. Because it's just so messy, I'm going to multiply by only one of them. I totally support if you decided to multiply by both in the same step. I support that. But I'm going to just do one of them, x plus 4. I could have multiplied by x minus 3 at the same time. It's just so messy. That cancels that. 1 minus 2 parentheses x plus 4. Should I multiply it out? Well, I could. I don't have to yet. Equals, and then this canceled this, so it's 3 over x minus 3. Now I'm going to go multiply by the x minus 3 everywhere. And I'm left with x minus 3, because 1 times it, it just keeps it the same. And this cancels this. And now maybe is a good time to multiply -2 by both of them. Did you get burned by the negative? -2x minus 8. It's really common right there for kids to mess that up. So if you didn't get burned by the negative, nice job. Part of that is the basics work that I've been trying to help you do on the top 20 and the basic 20. That keeps you from making that kind of mistake. -x minus 11 equals 3, adding 11 to both sides. -x equals 14. So at the end, you can multiply by a negative or divide by a -1, and you get x equals -14. Who had it before I did? Sweet. If you made a mistake, I would bet it was this making a -x. That's a really common mistake right there. Or forgetting that this -8 happened from the -2 times the 4. Those are the two really common ones. Now, if you got that wrong, that doesn't mean that you're about to fail a test tomorrow, but it does mean you need to practice. All right. Here's the next kind that you have to know for this test. Actually, it's going to be kind of a relief. It's easier. Solve. I told you that in this class, out of the top 20 most important algebra things, that factoring was the number one thing. And you're seeing it on this test, tons of factoring. Iris, what did you get for the factoring part?
X minus 7 and x plus 1.
Yep. Dominic, 3 key numbers.
3, 7, and -1.
Yep. Do those numbers work?
No.
No, because it doesn't want it to equal 0, and they would make it equal 0. If you stuck in 3, it would make this thing equal 0 because of that. So those are empty circles. Tully, tell me how to test an interval.
Like you pick a number.
So like what?
Like 8.
Okay? And then we'll test it. How do we test it?
Plug it into X.
Do I care what the actual answer is?
No.
No. I just care if it's
Positive or negative.
very good. What's this part?
Positive.
This part?
Positive.
This part?
Positive.
And that makes it positive, and so therefore
It works.
it works. It's bigger than 0. So it worked. I shaded in. All right. Brady, tell me, test an interval for me.
4.
Stick in 4. I put it here, here, and here. Tell me what the intervals come out, positive or negative. In the first one?
Positive.
The second one?
Negative.
Third one?
Positive.
Multiply them all together?
Negative.
You get a negative. Does that work? No, so it's out. And I suspected it wouldn't work because it was by another area that did work. Trent, what's between -1 and 3?
0.
I'm going to stick 0 in everywhere. And you're going to tell me whether it comes out negative or positive. So I put a 0 here, here, and here. And what do I get for this one?
0 or negative.
Negative. This one?
Negative.
Negative. This one?
Positive.
Good. If it's negative times positive, what do you get?
Positive.
And what does that mean?
It means we fill it in.
I fill it in. It's bigger than 0, so it's for sure going to work. And I would suspect this last one doesn't work. Sophia, can you test an interval for me? -2. I'm putting it in here. I better just erase this. Give me just a second. Okay, -2, -2, -2. How about the first one? Oh, negative, negative, and negative. Very good. So what does that mean? It means when it comes out negative, that's not bigger than 0. It doesn't work. You are right. Everybody, just to be sure, if the test involves intervals, which I don't know, it could. If it says you must use interval notation, would you please write that in interval notation? Just make sure you remember how that works. Write the answer in interval notation. Do you know, George? Yeah. Excellent. I'll have you read it for me in just a second. Okay, fire.
Parentheses -1, comma 3, and then parentheses the union thing, parentheses 7, comma to infinity.
Perfect. All right. So that was question number 2 of the 4 hard questions that I wanted to give you. Here's number 3. Nope, not 5. Pause while you try that. Okay, so do I need to get a common denominator and add them together? Or can I just multiply and clear it? Those are your 2 choices. Can I multiply by x on both sides to clear that fraction? Somebody say no, please. No, you can't. Why? Because of this sign here. You can't multiply by x. It doesn't work. So you have to make a common denominator and add these together. So if I'm going to do that, Ethan T., you're in charge. How do I get this to have a common denominator?
Multiply the left side by 2 on the bottom and the top, and on the right side, you multiply x on the bottom and the top.
Excellent. And then it comes out that the denominator is 2x. What's the top?
2 plus 1x.
Yeah. I'm just going to put x plus 2 because it feels better to put the x in front. It's totally okay to put it the other way. It's just math-wise, you're supposed to put the variable first. And now, it's one of these problems. I'm going to have Mason take over this one. How do I do this?
I don't know.
Okay, what makes the top 0?
-2.
Then that's one of your key spots. What makes the bottom 0?
Oh,
It's one of these kind. Like you're seeing it now.
0.
0. Do those numbers make it work or not? Let's take them one at a time. -2. Does that make this equation satisfied? It makes it 0. Is 0 less than 0?
No.
No. So then it doesn't work, so we leave it empty. How about the -2? Does that satisfy, sorry, the 0. If I put in 0, does that satisfy this little symbol? Does it make it happy or not? No, because you can't divide by 0, so both of them are empty. All right. Rissy, take it over from there. Excellent. Test an interval for me. Tell me something you want to test. All right, we'll test 1. So we're testing out there. 1 goes here and here. What happens? Positive over positive, and that's positive, which isn't less than 0, so it doesn't work. You're right. Garrett, test a number, an interval.
-1.
That's in here, and I'm going to put it here and here. Remember, I don't care about the number. I care if it's positive or negative. So on the top,
Positive.
on the bottom,
Negative.
excellent. When you put those together, it's negative. What does that mean?
That means that it satisfies the symbol.
It satisfies the symbol. Good. That's a good way to say it. It worked. Okay. And Brady, test a number at the end. -3 goes here, goes here. Does it make it positive or negative on top? Negative. On the bottom? It's a positive. Isn't it a positive? No, it's a -3. My bad. I just didn't write the negative. Okay. Sorry about that. So yes, it's negative on the bottom too. And now what?
It's positive, so it doesn't.
Overall, it's positive, so it doesn't work. Excellent. There we go. Okay. I'm feeling like you're going to be in better shape than if we would have tested today. You probably would have survived, but there would have been a fair number of retakes. But I'm feeling like now, I think I've covered everything of the hard stuff. So I'm just going to back off and go, what if it's just a really simple solve? This is an R2 level, but sometimes people get confused because it's like so easy. Arrow, what do you think we should do?
X on one side, so multiply by X on both.
Multiply by X. And you're right, we're going to eventually get all the X's onto one side, but I like clearing it like this. And then the X just gets multiplied away over here. This cancels. Does that mean there's 0 left? When everything cancels, it's a 1, actually. Because what's really happening is X divided by X is equal to 1. So it's really just simplifying. And then that's an X squared plus 2X is equal to 1. Now, I know some of you are sitting there going, I don't know what to do. We just multiplied everything by x, and now I got this weird equation left. Rissy, you know what to do? You're subtracting 1 so that you're setting this whole thing equal to 0. You are correct. Now, on the test, 98% chance that we'd make this factorable. Because if you can factor it, you should. But I don't think this one factors. You know what I mean? I tried it in my head and I couldn't get it to factor. Like I was going, well, it has to be x and x. It has to be a plus and a minus. And the only way to make a 1 is with a 1 and a 1. And then that doesn't make this answer. So what do you do? Just 2 words. Quadratic what? Quadratic formula. Now, we're not going to make you go through the whole thing right now, but if you did, you'd go x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 4. I'm taking that's b. Minus 4ac, 4 times 1 times negative 1. All over 2a, which is 2 times 1, which is 2. And you'd have to simplify that down. That is not outside the scope of this test. It would be possible. But, like I said, usually we make them factorable. If it would have factored and came out like this, then you would just go, oh, so x equals negative 2 and x equals 1. That's a more typical way to end. All right, so now what should you do? I'm going to recommend that you go over the worksheet that I've assigned for the last couple days. And I'm going to pause for a second while we look at that together. It's called Solving and Rationals Review Homework. Solving and Rationals Review Homework. And I did have you skip a couple. I'm unskipping those. So if you could erase the scribble outs and do those, now you should be doing that whole worksheet. Don't skip any of them. I know we skipped them before, but go back and do those now. And that's your only homework. So please, if you're any of those that confuse you, come up and ask. If any of the ones I just did for practice with you was like, I'm a little nervous about that one. Can you show me how to do common denominators? Ask me those kinds of things. Today is your chance. If you fail a test tomorrow and you didn't ask me any questions today, that's on you. You've got lots of time to ask me questions here. All right, that's all I got for you for the video for today.